A year ago, I was experiencing major pain down my arm. I couldn't sit or stand for any longer than 10 minutes. And by the grace of God, I found an amazing doctor that was able to tell me all the symptoms that I was experiencing for the past 11 years after doctors were telling me that nothing was wrong with me. I had bone spurs in my neck. I had a fusion that did not heal 11 years prior after my second surgery. I had a screw from my prior surgery sticking in my spinal canal. The bones in my neck were sticking straight out instead of curving down like they're supposed to, which also caused my neck to lean forward instead of straight up. I had a couple bone spurs in another spot in other areas of my neck. And so he said that a 9-level decompression surgery was needed along with rods to straighten my neck back up. And so I had that done March of 2019. The doctor ahead of time had prepared me that it would be a long recovery, 18-month recovery. And during my surgery, I received nerve damage down my right arm and into my hand. And the doctor kept telling me that it was just temporary at first. And then he, after months went by, he had told me that it was permanent damage. All of the children's ministry were praying for me. All of the kids supported me. All the leaders in the children's ministry. It was a very hard time. I was pretty much stuck in bed and had to step out of the children's ministry. I had all my family and friends praying for me, and the leaders and pastors, and I could feel their prayers. I had the surgery done. It was hard too because I couldn't hold Evie. And Evie couldn't come lay with me in the bed because she bounced around. But she understood. Things like that were hard, and come September, I was given a surprise party for a friend of mine. And in our house, it steps up a level in part of our house, and I had tripped going up that level, and my neck snapped back. And I was in pain for a while with it. And so my doctor was afraid I had maybe loosened a screw or just sprained my neck. And so he wanted to send me off for a CT scan. And the day before my CT scan, I was in church on Sunday morning, and one of the elders, I was kind of standing, debating, getting prayer from the healing team. And they were praying with somebody, and I was sitting there just thinking, people are already praying for me for this. I've already, asked for prayer. They're praying already, and I should probably go over there and get prayer. I should probably go over to them and get prayer. And one of the elders came by me and said, "Well, hey, Miss Krissa, how are you doing?" I said, taking it day by day, and, my neck's been bothering me. Well, maybe you should need to get over there and go get prayer. Go over there to the healing team. Yes, sir, I'm going. And so I went over there and told them what was going on and that I was getting a CT scan, and told them why and everything. And they also started praying for my hand and arm, and And there were a couple words just a couple that I'd say God had me hear them pray. And it was just a couple words. And it was for complete fusion. And a couple weeks later, when I went back to the doctor to get my results of the CT scan, the doctor came in and said, "Well, Krissa, there's a couple amazing findings I see." And I said, "Okay, what is that?" And he said, the first one is that space that didn't fuse from your last surgery 11 years prior is completely fused." And I just sat there and stared at him and said, "Okay." And he said, "And the other is the front of your neck is completely fused, and 60 to 70% of the back of your neck is completely fused. And that doesn't happen until a year, at least a year with this surgery." And this was at 7 months after my surgery. And I sat there and my heart's pounding and I'm looking at him and I said, "Doctor," I said, "could you go back to that fusion from 11 years ago from my surgery that didn't fuse? That's completely fused." He said, "Yeah." And I'm just staring at him and he starts trying to explain it to me, kind of stumbling his words and kind of going over at the surgery what he did, but I can hear in his voice, he really doesn't know how it happened. And I remember I just looked at him and I smiled and I said, "No, that's God." And he smiled at me because he knew. And I remember on my way home, driving home, and God reminded me when I got prayed a couple weeks prior in the prayer team, complete fusion is what they prayed. And that doctor said complete fusion in that space. And he said complete fusion in the front of my neck. And he said 60 to 70% complete fusion in the back end of my neck. And I remember just this awe came over me. And over the course of this time, he had already told me that the doctor had already told me that the damage in my arm and my hand was permanent. And when I was driving home, I thought, God, you've already done this in my neck. And it just brought hope back to me that day. God brought hope back to me that day that my doctor's not gonna define this damage in my arm, that God can heal my arm. So